The following is a special presentation of the Minty Organization for the Performing Arts.
Good evening and welcome to another installment of Front Row Conversations. I am once again thrilled to be joined with my guest for this evening's program, a proud graduate of Monsignor Farrell's class of 2011 and a Minty winner for Outstanding Choreography in 2012, and most recently a member of the touring company of a little show you may have heard of called Hamilton. Phil Colgan joins us this evening. Hello, Phil. It's so good to see you.
Hi, Michael. So good to see you too.
So we started off our series with Joe O'Malley, who you know very well, and he was the first Minty winner. So as you said, it only be fair that we had you on as one of the first Minty losers.
The first. I lost in that category.
You lost to Joe O'Malley in 2011. So before we get to...
Yes, happily so.
Yeah. Before we get to the Minties, let's back it up. You have been a longtime member of the theater community on Staten Island. So at the you did shows in elementary school, I know, and then also in high school. So why don't you talk about your first experience doing high school theater and what those shows were?
So as you said, I went to Farrell, and I actually didn't do the first 2 years of shows there. They did the Pajama Game and the Wiz my first 2 years, and I was busy with dance and swimming and all that stuff because I was still attending dance school. I started when I was 7 and did it all. I mean, still do it now, but I was taken very seriously in high school, so I didn't do the shows my first 2 years and did stage crew just to be involved. And then Monty found out that there was a male dancer in the building and was like, "Why are you not doing my shows? Because you're here, you're literally backstage. What is wrong with you? Please come do the show next year." So him and a bunch of my friends pressured me, and I auditioned for Anything Goes, which you were the assistant director for, which is how we met. And I did that and started getting the bug a little bit again in high school. I did that. I did Dirty Rotten Scoundrels my senior year, which was the first year we had the Minties. Was nominated and lost to Joe O'Malley. And then that summer, I did Hairspray Within the Wings Productions, which you were also in. And that really ignited the spark in me to keep pursuing it post high school. Farrell's program also was such a beautiful theater program the years I was there, and it was so come as you are, and we accept you, and we are going to showcase the best version of you. And Monty and everybody involved in the shows took such pride in that, and I was so grateful for that. Like my senior year, I mean, you look at the Anything Goes videos, I'm like barely dancing in the back. I'm just kind of there.
Yeah, but we gave you a solo line in the very first scene. You were singing and dancing in that show.
You did. You very much did. But in terms of dance stuff, in terms of dance, like, I wasn't tapping in that show. I wasn't doing a lot. And then my senior year, like, I was fully dancing center stage, partnering Caitlin Scarpa and Haley Bishop. And we had I just felt so much more like I could be myself by then. And I thank Monty for creating that space and the people who made the Farrell Players to have that space. So post high school, I started auditioning for professional productions while I was in college. I went to NYU. I was in the Gallatin School there, and in that program, you can make up your own major, basically. So instead of declaring a traditional major, it's kind of like Build-A-Bear for college. It's like the worst way of putting it. But
that's what the brochure says too when you go to admitted students.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure my parents will love hearing that now. But no, it was a really great program though, if you know you have multiple interests and you want to be super specific about what you want to study. So I went in thinking of some kind of media entertainment thing, but then I saw these postings online for professional tours and auditions for open calls, and I just started going to see how I would do. And Monty pushed me a couple times when I'd be debating about it, because I was still doing community theater on Staten Island a lot at the time. And I'd be I remember there was an audition for Newsies coming up on Broadway, and they're having a giant open call. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go. And Monty was like, no, you absolutely should. That is a thing that you could do. And I was like, no, I can't. And then started going and feeling like, oh, I maybe could pursue this. And then I continued doing college shows and working on shows there, kept auditioning professionally, and eventually decided like this is the route I'm going to take, and adjusted my curriculum at college that way.
And
It's
while you were in
a
college,
long-winded answer.
well, yeah, but you're in college, and just like so many, you want to give back to those that helped you, and so you became the choreographer for the Farrell Players immediately following your graduation. And so why don't you tell us about the shows that you choreographed at Farrell?
So Monty called me. I actually remember it was the day of Villas Into the Woods. I came home from college to see it, and I got a call from Monty asking to choreograph the show, and I was so excited. It was a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. He had done it like 10 years prior at Farrell. And I had just graduated, so it was James McKeon and Gary and Tim and all the people who I like did shows with and loved. And so that was my first foray into choreographing a full show, into being on the production side of a musical. And I just fell in love, and I forgot how much I had always wanted to do that. So Forum was the first one, and then I did the Jazzy Chaperone the following year, which was one of the most special theatrical experiences I've ever had, even in my career, in elementary school, high school, whatever. That show, working with those kids, working with Monty, Ryan Cobb assisted me on it. We had the best time working on that show. And that was the last thing I did with the Farrell Players.
And I think that show, above most, you just had every single person fit beyond perfect into their roles. That just elevated that show to another level, on top of the fantastic musical numbers that you choreographed for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I totally agree. Like the cast, not only was it an insanely talented group, but they were so kind and fun and cared about what the show had to say as a love letter to theater. Like Jazzy Chaperone is at its heart a giant love letter to theater and to being a theater fan. And everyone appreciated that and like embraced their inner theater nerd in like the most beautiful way. That it was such a joy to go to rehearsal every day, such a joy to put on that show and watch it, relive it at the Minties and see them perform it again. You know, I remember Kieran said the opening monologue he did was like, can we do it? He talks about the number that they're going to perform, and he says, can we do it one last time? And I just like cried just a little because I was like, oh, I don't want to say goodbye to this chapter yet. Because I'm emotional, we all know this, but no, that was such a beautiful experience.
And turning, before we get to your professional credits, let's stay on Staten Island. Let's stay at the Minties. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels comes, and you hear that there's this new award show that's going to be there to celebrate the theater in the high schools. What were your thoughts upon hearing that? And what were your thoughts being there for the first one when nobody had any idea of what we were doing?
Well, so I remember I found out from Ryan Cobb in journalism class. He wrote an article about it and was telling me all about it.
Yes, he did. I remember he had interviewed me for that.
And he sat in front of me because Cobb and Colgan, so we sat right next to each other. And I remember him being like, oh, so Pinto's putting on an award show. And I was like, oh, that's going to be fun. What's it called? He's like, the Minties. I was like, of course it is. But no, I remember thinking it's going to be a cool way to bring everybody together. Being honest about skepticism about competitiveness too, and making it feel competitive. But as we know, that didn't happen that year, especially like as the first inaugural year, to set a tone for what the Minties could be. It felt like it became such an outpouring of love and just appreciation for what everyone did that year and for the shows and the work everyone put in and the talent that was on the stage. But I remember being excited about it and you know, not really understanding what it would be until we were there, and what it could be and what the potential of it was, and then seeing the potential play out and then what it grew to very quickly in the years following.
And I always said, and I said to Joe when we interviewed him a few weeks ago, I knew it was something special when you won, but everybody cheered. And so it crossed all school lines. It was this camaraderie. It was this love fest to theater, and any competitive elements was secondary to it.
Totally. I know. I do wish you had little screens on all of us losers when that happened, but no,
And
it was.
actually, I think, and Cobb joined you in that inaugural loser category as well.
Oh, you're right, for Bye Bye Birdie. Yeah, good group, good group.
So now the second year you do forum, and that winds up winning for outstanding choreography. And so if you could take us through your thoughts, presenting a number on the St. George stage, and then that night.
St. George has a really special place actually for me, because that's where my sister was doing dance recitals growing up. That's where I did dance recitals growing up. So getting to put Farrell's students up there was so fun. And being in that room, like dress rehearsal mornings are the best at the Minties, because there's an excitement in the room, and it's quick to put a number that you rehearsed for 3 months for a different stage, to put it up there and to put the medley together and figure out what you want to present as your little bubble of the show. But I remember being very proud. I remember the guys did Everybody Ought to Have a Maid, which was so fun. And they brought down the house every night. So I was happy that the Minty audience appreciated as much as we did. But no, and the stage is so big there. We had a cast of 52. So to actually be able to spread them out and feel like everyone can take their moment there, and to give the kids an opportunity to perform for a 3,000 seat theater that is so beautiful and so ornate, and that is one of my favorite theaters. Anytime it's used all over TV and film, the St. George, constantly, and I'm sure you know. But to see it, I'm always like, oh, I've been there. Oh, I've been on there. Oh, that's my childhood theater. That's great. But Smash, Fosse Verdon, School of Rock, there's so many. It's such a momentous is not the right word. What's epic stage to perform on, that the fact that the kids get to do that every year, and then to be there the first year we got to do that when we did forum was special. No, it was a very fun year for the Minties to see it grow also from Snug Harbor into St. George.
Well, that's true. We went from 1 year to outgrow a 600 seat theater, and to that second went from 5 schools to 7 schools. And that second year was really a first too, because we had no idea how it would go over at the St. George. But as you know, it's just been tremendous there each and every year. And then we actually have a little video clip of a fun thing happened on the way to a forum from the 2012 Minties, and a little bit of the Drowsy Chaperone from 2013 as well. So let's take a look.
A maid, a maid, a maid, a maid. Everybody ought to have a maid. Someone who's efficient and reliable, obedient and pliable, and quieter than the mouse. Would you be so nimble, filling with the thimble, bending down? Would you be delightful, leaning up, leaning down? Everybody ought to have a maid. Someone who'll be busy as a bumblebee, and even if you grumble, be as graceful as a grouse. Wriggling in the anteroom, jiggling in the living room, feeling in the dining room, wiggling in the elbow room, sputtering all around the house.
like I said, those are just fantastic numbers. And I know for me, and especially, and I'm sure those kids, you don't realize on the grandeur of the stage that you're performing at that moment in time, until much later looking back to be able to appreciate it. But I'm sure they do now, and appreciate you being able to put numbers like that on the stage for them. So I know they're very appreciative of the work that you did. And I know Monty is as well, for all the work that you did with the Farrell Players. So,
and I feel like very lucky that I had. Oh, sorry, I think it froze. I had I feel very lucky also to have the Farrell Players had been in my life, and to had the opportunity, because I think that was such a turning point in my life, and realizing I was going to do theater professionally, and realizing how much I wanted it and needed it in my life. So I'm very grateful, especially for Forum and Drowsy, and kind of steering me in that direction in my college years.
and speaking of your college years, it's a perfect segue. You were involved a lot in the arts at NYU. Saw you in a number of shows there. I believe West Side Story and Catch Me If You Can. You were involved in at NYU, and then from there you started after graduation. You continued to audition professionally. And what was the first professional credit that you got to your name following graduation?
First one was a production of West Side Story in upstate New York. Immediately following college, I did like a string of regional theater jobs at some awesome theaters. And I feel like I learned a lot post graduation about the business, about how to conduct yourself. I worked with a lot of really great influences on me that I think I feel very lucky now in hindsight to have come across. I did West Side Story. I played action in that. I did Saturday Night Fever 3 times in a row at different theaters. It was a big ticket item that year, and I happened to just like get a bunch of them. And then that fall, I auditioned for the world premiere of a Bronx Tale, the musical, at Paper Mill Playhouse, which was my first like big original show that I wound up booking, and started later that winter.
So before we get to A Bronx Tale, because I do want to spend some time on that, going from graduation right into regional theater, and because I know a lot of our students want to continue with theater, want to pursue it professionally, what is the one thing that you wish that you either knew or wish you had done before graduation that you realized shortly thereafter?
Oh, good question. I think I wish I knew. I would say do your research on. It's tough. I also did like some summer stock gigs while I was in college, right? So and those were unpaid and like internship style, but like very much cut your teeth jobs. And we were working. We did 3 shows back to back. I was teching one show during the day. It was like true summer stock in a barn. But that helped me realize like how professional theater is run. So I felt like I had at least an idea of it. I would say approach every situation immediately following college like you don't know everything, but go confidently enough to like be there and feel like you can take up space there. Because I don't necessarily look back on that and be like, oh, you were stupid, you didn't know X, Y, and Z, because I never approached work after college like I know everything, I'm here and that's it, because I knew I had a lot to learn. So I think that's my best advice, and I'm still trying to always learn wherever I am. But the thing I'll tell students is to assume you don't know everything, so just be open and try to pick up as quick as possible, because it is somewhat trial by fire once you start working professionally and figuring out how to behave and figuring out how to conduct yourself in a rehearsal room and in a professional situation. It's just a different beast than what you might be used to if you haven't done that yet, and whether it's in a college or community theater or high school. So I would say just keep an open mind and an open brain into receiving all that information.
I think it's excellent advice. Like you said, for any level of theater or auditions that you go on. So you get to A Bronx Tale, and now being from an Italian family in New York City, so obviously that movie has a certain resonance with New Yorkers. When you first heard about it, what were your thoughts? And then what was the process like from when you booked it up until the premiere at Paper Mill?
Well, fun fact, we're barely Italian. I look it. Everyone always assumes. Literally, like a year into, we'll talk about it later, but a year into Hamilton, someone on stage, I said something about being like Cuban and Puerto Rican, and they were like, "You're not Italian?" I was like, "No, I'm from Staten Island." So it happens often.
Well,
But,
I thought you
no,
had
we
at
have
least
it
on your
elsewhere
mother's
somewhere
side,
there.
so I apologize for mixing up the family tree.
No. It's somewhere on my father's side up there. It does happen. It is in there. But no, so A Bronx Tale is obviously like that string of movies of like Godfather, Goodfellas, that do, especially in Staten Island, hold so much weight, and they're so prevalent in what you're consuming when you're younger. But I actually didn't see A Bronx Tale until right before I auditioned for it. Like I didn't see it till I was 22, which is actually very surprising. But getting to at the audition, Chaz Palminteri was there, and I remember being like, "Oh, okay, this is actually like the Bronx Tale musical." And like I knew he would be there. It said it in the audition notice, but to actually see somebody who you had seen for so long, and I had been a fan of Chaz and seen him in so many other things through the years and knew about A Bronx Tale, but he was a part of it. Robert De Niro co-directed it with Jerry Zaks. So there was like, it felt, yes, it was an adaptation of the movie, but it felt so closely linked because so many people who were so involved in the movie and made it what it was were involved in the show. So auditioning for it actually felt really fun because I just felt like I got to submerge myself for 8 hours that day at that audition. And then I was so excited when I found out I got it, like freaked out. And then we show up and it's Chaz's life story. So he was there and heavily involved as the writer of the show. He wrote the script, and then Alan Menken, who worked on all the Disney movies, or a lot of the Disney movies, wrote music and lyrics, or music for it, not lyrics. But to have such iconic people be creating this new piece was so cool to be around, and to see them work together, and to see like, I was a swing for the show, and I understudied these doo-wop guys who, the guys who are underneath the lamp at the beginning of the movie, those 4 guys, they're in the musical as well, and that's who I understudied. So they wrote so much new doo-wop music for it. So to be able to hear that and to see what the process was from start to finish, to get to opening night and to get to a product that was the first time it was ever delivered to the world was so special. And I hold that experience so close because you're watching some of the greats do what they do best, and then also developing a relationship with them. And, to have Robert De Niro pop into rehearsals every so often was like, it's that feels unreal. There was a day my binder was next to his, like with the first day we got scripts, and I was like, okay, well, but no, that cast was so remarkable as well. That again, those people were such a perfect example for me of how to behave in the business and how to conduct yourself in a professional work setting, and how to handle working on a new show and deal with changes and deal with to have the flexibility to be a good company member, and how to be with other people. And people, other than the child actors, I was probably the youngest person in the cast. There was like a 17-year-old, 2 12-year-olds, and then I was the next youngest. So and I never felt like that because people just treated everyone with respect. So A Bronx Tale was really, really cool to be a part of. And it was short. We were only at Paper Mill we rehearsed for 5 weeks, played for 4. So it was a relatively short gig, but one of my favorites.
Do you remember what it felt like that opening night at Paper Mill? Because like you said, this is not a show that's been on Broadway for years and it's just a new company coming in. This is the world premiere. That's not many people could say they were part of something like that. So what do you remember from that opening night?
Opening night, I love opening night because it's always exciting. There's always a buzz in the air. And then to feel like we accomplished getting to a place, because like you said, it's so much more than just putting a show up. It's crafting it. It's seeing the changes that go in and out of it. And then also there were some cool people there because it was close to New York and because of the high profile people involved in it. So and knowing that the show would probably have a life beyond Paper Mill on Broadway, to feel like you're there for a big moment for it is a really special feeling. And there's a gift that they gave to all of us. There's like little things on people's stations opening night, but the opening lyrics of the show are, "This is a Bronx tale and it's my story," which is a line from the movie. But Alan gave us his copies of his like the handwritten sheet music that he had, and then the whole creative team signed it for us. So that's like one of the most special things I have, because it just feels like it's a little piece of that show's history, in a brief moment in time before now it's gone on 2 tours and it gets done regionally, or was going to get done regionally before the shutdown. So it's exciting that I love the feeling of having been there for that moment.
And you go from a world premiere to then being in the hottest musical in at least a generation, and that is the Hamilton tour that you started with shortly after. Take us through that experience. And I know there was a certain number of months where you couldn't even say anything from when you got the gig until when you were actually starting. So tell us what that experience was like.
Hamilton was amazing. Hamilton was a ride of an experience, definitely. It's a very demanding show, and it's such a beloved show that it was such a beautiful thing to be a part of, to see people so excited about the thing you're in and really care about it. And like you said, even before I got into Hamilton, or joined the company, I was a fan of the show. And to see what it became so quickly, and it was fun. I joined in 2017, and that was still just like Lynn had left the show maybe a year prior, so it was still riding high, and we were the first tour to hit a lot of those cities. But let me backtrack. So I started auditioning for it my senior year of college. Before I started working on all those regional theaters, I had my first callback for Hamilton. Long story short, 2 years later, I'm still auditioning for it. I was in because they had the Broadway company, they had a Chicago company, another tour that I was in consideration for over and over again, but then just wasn't a right puzzle piece for those companies. That then 2 years into auditioning for them, I got an offer for the show to start their new company, which is going to be the Philip Tour, which I joked endlessly that it was named after me. But I joined, I got that call June of 2017, and we didn't start till December of that year. So there was a 6-month period where I just had to be like, okay, I'm leaving for a year, but no one knows why. Or like only select few if I can contain myself.
But then by the end, we all knew why, but still couldn't say anything.
Yeah, exactly. Word travels fast. But no, and then to start, when shows are long running, if you join as an original company member and to get a whole rehearsal process is pretty rare. So the fact that I started an original tour of that show and we got to find our own Hamilton was so cool. It was such a special experience to see how people were taking it on, and to know what the iconic moments in the show were, or the moments I love most in the show, and to be able to go see it. We got to watch it a lot while we were in rehearsals. They'd have some signups for us to go watch the show so we can, take notes and see how things were getting done. To see those moments play out, to hear an audience react, and then to be back in a rehearsal room learning those is such a cool experience to have. And it was fast. We learned the show in like 4 weeks. We did a week of music, maybe 4 weeks of learning it, putting it on its feet, another week of runs, and then we hit the road. So it was definitely fast and furious. And I was a swing and a dance captain for the show, so I had a lot of information to take in. And that's definitely where like the roller coaster happened in that, in just terms of like having to perform multiple roles and having to take charge of something that you're still learning yourself, because I didn't know the show prior, and I all of a sudden was responsible for keeping the choreography in check and working with the creative team and with my co-dance captain and our resident dance supervisor. So it was definitely a big learning curve that I had to tackle relatively quickly. But then all of that was so outweighed by bringing that show to the country. And I mean, we went to such amazing cities like Seattle and Portland and Las Vegas, Salt Lake, Fort Lauderdale, Dallas, San Antonio. Like we hit so many cities that had never had Hamilton before, So people were so excited, and I would sit in the back and take notes on the show as dance captain, and you just hear people like gasping with excitement, seeing the stage for the first time, seeing, you know, the thing that they had seen pictures of or whatever, or video clips or Tony performances. So it was a special thing to be a part of, and I feel very lucky to have been a little piece of that show's history for 2 years, because it's special. Like you said, it doesn't happen all the time.
What was the first city? Where did you open? And what would be the average time span that you would spend in each city? And then if I could add a third parter to that question, if you had a favorite city that you played in, either for just being in the city itself or the reactions that you got from the audience members.
So Seattle was our first city. We were there for, see, the nice thing about being on national tour that's just starting, and especially a show like Hamilton, most tours will play a city for like a week, 2 weeks, something like that. We played Seattle for 7 weeks. We played some cities for 6 weeks. Our usual was like a 3-week to a month-long stay. So we actually got to like settle down in each city, feel like we were a part of it, check out all the local spots. Whereas a lot of tours just kind of go in and out. Seattle is one of my favorite cities that we hit, though, just because it was where we texted the show. It was where we opened. It was where I made my debut. I debuted 2 of my tracks there. My family saw me there for the first time in the show. So Seattle's just a great city in general. Yeah, I loved that. I loved Fort Lauderdale because it was also middle of winter when we were there. And I'm usually a winter person, but it was actually really nice to not be in the snow.
Up here with the rest of us.
Yeah. Dallas was great. Nashville was awesome. There was a lot of, we played some really, really cool cities. Did I answer all 3 of the questions?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Nice.
I'm keeping track. So you left the show January of 2020. What was the last stop that you played in?
Nashville. Nashville was the last stop. I did 2 years on the tour and then left at the end of my 2nd year.
And then, of course, we all know what has happened since then. But you have not stopped doing what you love. So I want to make sure that we tell people about that, so that you have an opportunity. Phil has been teaching dance classes, which you've done throughout your entire time, even with auditioning and doing shows. You've always found time to teach and to give back. So why don't you talk about the classes that you've been teaching, and if, since everything's virtual now, if folks want to join, how they could do that.
Well, thank you for the plug. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I started teaching open classes in the city probably during college, and I wasn't charging anything for them at the time because I just wanted to like get my bearings as a teacher. That turned into getting to teach at some awesome studios in the city, like Steps on Broadway, Broadway Dance Center, and now I have my own class at Steps on Broadway twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's intermediate theater jazz with me. It's at noon, and now we're virtual right now. So I teach from there, myself and maybe an assistant or 2, teach from the studios at Steps on Broadway through Zoom. We have it all kind of figured out, and there's a whole system to it now to keep us tied over until we can resume in-person classes again. But yeah, and you know, it's my favorite thing I do. I think I love performing and I love choreographing, but I so love teaching and connecting to people, especially during the pandemic, being able to be in people's homes all over the world, honestly. I've been very surprised by where I'll get tagged on Instagram and be like, here's your combo from this week, like from Vienna. And I'm like, oh, awesome. So I do that twice a week, and people can join. The class can be challenging, but we try to have a lot of fun in it as well. It's always storytelling based. It's always musical. And yeah, so I'm there every Tuesday, Thursday. You can sign up on Steps on Broadway's website, and or my Instagram has plenty of information about it and some clips as well.
Well, great. We'll make sure we put both informations on our website for people. And you've also been tremendous by helping out with our audition workshop classes for the Minties while you've been around. So I thank you for that and for everything that you've done for the Minties and Staten Island Theater as a whole. It's funny, we both began our careers in high school shows being a male dancer. And I don't want to have to say which of us has become the more successful in that role, but we'll leave it to other minds.
I don't. It's a real big toss-up. I don't know.
But Phil, seriously, your infectious attitude, your positivity has always been tremendous to be around. It's always help people to strive to be better and to do better because of your expectations in them. So I thank you on behalf of everything that you've done for us, and congratulations on all the successes. And we look forward to many, many more in the years ahead.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me, and also for giving, Staten Island a way to connect with each other. I feel like I didn't know who was doing the shows in other high schools until you started this. So thank you for everything you've done for the community.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you all joining us tonight for another episode of Front Row Conversations. We'll be off next week for Easter, but be sure to join us 2 weeks from tonight for an all new episode. Until then, as always, meet me at the Minty's. Good night, everybody.